Welcome to the Be Honest Man podcast, a discussion among men of various perspectives on subjects from the taboo to the typical. This is episode 9. Today, we're talking about body shaming. So, guys, what have we gotten into this week? Have we done anything cool? Seen anything cool? Tried anything new? What we got going on?
I went to Atlanta. I went and cast a row company tournament live in the studio, which is really cool. It's my second time getting to do that. It was a blast. I think there's a lot of improvements, and getting to hang out with people and get a little bit of travel in and stuff like that is always fun. Not to mention getting paid. So yeah, overall it was pretty nice.
We talked about it on episode 4, but this week I started seeing a therapist.
Yay!
Let's go!
Yeah,
Oh,
that's my thing for the week.
heck yeah! What?
We are
Big
proud of you,
thing.
man. We are proud of you,
Big
man.
thing.
Let's
Excellent.
get it. That's huge.
That is awesome, my man.
Stole the spotlight.
I only got to hear my baby's heartbeat this week, but I mean,
Oh God, that's
all
huge
right.
too.
Oh,
Jeez,
man.
Sean, you better have something big, dude.
I got
What do you
another.
do, Sean?
Yeah, you basically nothing.
Yeah, no, I mean, I started a semester, my next semester of school.
Boo.
And yeah, that's that.
Hey, that's still pretty good.
hey, we're all doing things, man.
We're all
Yeah,
doing
we've
things.
we all did things.
It's no step up in self care or your first child's or your child's first heartbeat, but we're all doing things.
Hey, we all start somewhere.
Indeed. So, as I said before, the topic today is body shaming. It's a pretty broad topic, I feel like. I think that there's a lot to get into. It's before we even get into it, let's get kind of a definition. So the definition we have here for body shaming is when someone makes fun of an aspect of someone else's body. Body shaming can also be when someone feels negative about a part of their own body. It can be considered a form of bullying, especially among children and young people. And I think that the part there about your own body, where essentially you are body shaming yourself, that's a big one. That's a big one. You don't think of that, like, as far as like in a kind of mainstream sense. When people talk about body shaming, they're talking about individuals or groups of people shaming other individuals or groups of people. So I'm kind of looking forward to getting into that, because it's I think it's something that more people deal with than I think anyone really would believe.
Oh yeah.
So the first thing we have here, and it gets right into that. Like, it's literally what we're going to immediately get into that, and that is, are you happy with your body?
It's a deep question.
Very
Good.
deep.
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of facets to that. I guess
Yeah.
the plain answer is
Be honest, man.
I'm trying to be. It's tough because I'm thinking about it from two different degrees, right? So for me, I'm not going to answer it yes or no. I was trying to. That's why I was trying to answer yes or no. But it's really like, I'm not unhappy with my body to the point where I'm just like, wow, I hate me, right? But I'm also tough on like, oh dang, I guess I recognize where like my body quote unquote like falls short to standards, right? Like, I know that I'm 5'8", and all you ever hear about is how people need to be 6 foot. Right, like I know that. You said allegedly. I'm 5'8", like, but that's so. And that way, it's like I'm okay with it. Like, I don't sit around all day being like, God, dude, I'm freaking 5'8", like. But I also recognize that, like, would it be cool if I was 6 foot? Yeah, but we already know that would be too much power.
I like that. I like that answer.
I think I'm kind of in the same boat where, like, I will not necessarily the same boat, but there's no way for me to answer that for sure, because I have this kind of inner dialogue where I'm like, there's certain things I like about my body. There's certain things I recognize that I'm a fan of, and also that I shouldn't care, because as long as I'm not in any sort of danger or health crisis, like, my body's fine to do everything it needs to do. It's mostly aesthetics that stress us out. But then that's the other part, is there is that part that's like, bro, really need to lose those love handles. your shoulders really pop, bro. Like you gotta, there's that whole thing that plays into it, um, that I do stress over sometimes, and gotten better about it. But I would say overall, I'm pretty happy with like the functioning of my body, like everything I'm able to do and all that. And I don't think I look terrible, but I definitely feel like there's a lot of improvements I want to make. So we're gonna go with no.
Uh, I can straight off the bat tell you I am not happy with my body. Like I said, I'm not the worst I've ever been. Um, I am the highest weight I've ever been. I'm not happy about that, but I am working towards that. And, I've spoken about it in some of the earlier podcasts, but stopping drinking, stopping vaping, um, has really immediately melted a lot of weight off my body. And now it's just working on my eating habits and increasing more exercise. But, um, yeah. And with age, I've got things going on. We already talked about that in another episode. You guys got a catalog to catch up on if you have not listened to it already. But hair loss, I've got the thinning spot up top, so that's already starting. So there are little things that are out of my control, and then there are some things that are in my control. And trying to maintain focus on those different aspects is very important.
I mean, I'll be pretty straightforward and say I'm not happy with my body. But I don't think there's ever really been a point in my life where I looked in the mirror and I was like, this is peak male performance right here.
Like
I
it or
get
not, this is what peak male performance looks like.
Yeah, there are things I change here and there, but none of it's killing me. So it is what it is.
Yeah, and I think so. I think where we're at with that is essentially we all definitely have things we're like not happy about with our bodies,
things we can work on.
things that we can work on. Some of them we can't. Like
Yeah.
I'm not going to get any taller, but
I think there's a surgery now.
yeah, um, it's one of those things maybe we'll talk about later on. Is that like every surgery to like help men in areas that they may want help in is like the risk to reward ratio is not good. Women, and again, it's like if you want boob implants, there's risk, right? There are sorts of things. Brazilian butt lifts, there's actual like massive risk to that, I think, or maybe not massive, but like I think all male things are like drastically higher. I think for all the male things, like dudes just like lose their legs when they try to do some of these things. Like their dong stops working altogether. They got to get it snipped off. Like all sorts of stuff when people try to alter any of the things that men want to change. So it's kind of wild. I'm sure we'll get into that. But yeah, we all want to have things that we're not super happy about. But I think we're all confident to a degree. I think is
Oh,
kind of
yeah.
what we're saying. Like we're all like, okay, we're cool with who we are. It doesn't mean we don't wish that it was better in some areas.
Yeah. I don't feel bad about my body in any way. To a point where I don't like or want to switch bodies or anything like that. I'm definitely, like you said, confident in who I am. I know there are things I need to work on to be peak happy, but yeah, I'm perfectly fine and confident in who I am and my body. So
I,
I don't
I
know,
would.
man. If someone walked up to me and said, "Hey, free of charge, you can swap bodies with Ryan Reynolds if you want."
I'm doing it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
in a heartbeat.
Yeah, I'm in there.
I would say that like
I'm inside of Ryan Reynolds.
in this in this moment, I feel like the confidence in myself and all that stuff is there. Like everything that we've said, we've all pretty much said the same thing. Everything you just said, I feel that. But there are times, especially when like I don't know, we'll say the mood's in a darker place, where I will avoid looking in the mirror, and then when I do, I'm like, bro, I hate you. Like you look like trash, like genuine disgust. Nothing has changed. Nothing physically has changed between I'm good. I just need to work on some things in this moment. But my entire outlook on it, and this is more for the mental health episode, but it does fall in that purview of like kind of internal body shaming, where
Mhm.
it's still it's still there,
And
and
we
I
tend to
think
be harder on ourselves.
oh yeah
In
for
general.
sure
I
for
have
sure.
people who like, even to this day, like I don't like me with like a shirt off and stuff like that. I don't, anything. And people who have witnessed it, in certain scenarios are like, what are you talking about? Like, you look fine, like, you look good, all that. But in my own head, like, I hold me to a higher degree, I guess. Like, I see it and I'm like, no, that's not good enough, like, blah, blah, blah. And no matter how many times people say, like, you look good, you're fine, whatever, like, I'm just not where I want to be or where I think they want me to be. I'll convince myself that, like, no, that's just the nice thing to say, right? Like, yeah,
Yeah.
no, you look fine with your shirt off, whatever. And then in
Put your
reality,
shirt
they're
back on.
vomiting, there's like internally vomiting.
Well, yeah, I think that goes with a lot of people in a lot of aspects of our lives. And we had spoken about it previously, but having that imposter syndrome where we ourselves feel a certain way about us, but others on the outside aren't looking at us the same. So we do hold ourselves to a higher standard when it comes to our bodies or even things that we create or do. We're like,
Yeah.
yeah, that doesn't look good. People are like, dude, that looks amazing. That's awesome. I like whatever you did. And you're like, yeah,
Yep.
but
So to bring up the opposite of what Steven was just talking about with people complimenting, have you ever experienced any form of body shaming?
Oh yeah. By you guys. Like, what the heck? Chris is making fun of me being 5'8". Like, I mean, just think about it. The people in the people in the audience have heard them do this. Like, not really Indy. Shout out to Indy. He doesn't really do anything, but the rest of
He
y'all,
does it in
especially
private.
Chris. Oh
He
wow,
does it in
dude, what
private.
the
Like,
heck?
we get off the podcast.
What do you think we were
he
talking about before you got in here?
He was like, guys, I enjoy doing this and filming it, but man, Steven's really, he's so short, even on camera, bro.
Yeah, see, this is what we're talking. This is how problems arise right here.
This is, I don't know.
But I've had people bring that up, right? Of course, people bring up height um all the time. I've had forehead shine, actually. Like, when I was
You
on
powder that
camera.
forehead, bro.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But like, I guess I get oily, and I was on like bright lights coming down, and somebody tried to like come at me and was just like, your forehead shiny or something like that. And I'm just like,
Shiny ass
okay. But
forehead.
just like random stuff like that. Like, it's not necessarily body shame. It's people just finding something about your appearance at that time and being like,
Yeah,
haha,
yeah,
look
yeah.
at you.
Which, it's kind of, it's really funny to me because there's what, an inch difference between our height.
Yeah.
And I've never once been approached by anyone who mentioned anything about my height ever in my life.
It blows my mind. It's the same thing. Like, you'll say things and we're literally essentially like the same height. Greg says stuff. He's like 5'10", and he's like, oh, you short. I'm like,
Do they always call you a hobbit?
yeah, like the dude, like, he's not tall. Like, I don't get it.
Yeah.
Chris says that he's 6'2", but Chris has also said that if he could give me, well, this is gonna sound weird. If he could give me 2 inches,
I'd give you 2 inches.
that he would do it, and then I would go up to 5'10", and he would come down to 6 foot, and I think that would be fantastic.
It's only fair.
there you go.
Yeah, honestly, if only it was that easy. I'd be trading people stuff all the time. Just random inches.
I mean, on a personal note,
That'd
I
be
don't
huge,
know.
dog.
That's what I was saying. But I'd give you an inch off my bicep. You give me an inch for my dong, and you just trade it around, dude. Like, easy.
I don't think I've ever. I mean, given I have the memory of a goldfish, I don't know that I've ever been shamed for my body per se. I know, well, something to do with my body, which would be glasses. I got made of a decent amount of fun of, but and the thing is, like, I've always been overweight. I think the last time that I wasn't, at a higher body fat percentage than what a doctor would recommend was when I was like in elementary school.
No.
And like,
I feel like you were pretty averagely built up and through high school.
no,
You
way, dude.
were not like, nobody would look at you and be like, that guy's overweight. Were you like,
No, I was chubby. I've
Kind
always
of.
been chubby. Yeah.
kind of.
That's that brotherly love. You see him through
Yeah.
different eyes.
No, he what, like, we can look at pictures. I was way chubbier than him. Like, there's a picture of us outside the camper where like
I don't know.
you're in your thing. Like, Chris, I get it, bro. I was chubby. Stop nodding your head like that. But like, yeah, I don't know.
Either way.
You were not until now.
So, anyways, I feel my memory of myself, my perception was that, when I was a little wee lad, I was a stick, and then I became fat, and I have been that way all of my life. But yeah, no, other than like the whole 4 eyes, you look like Harry Potter, that kind of thing. I can't recall anything. But again, my memory is extremely poor. Maybe that works to my benefit in this scenario.
At a point, At a point, for a brief period of time, you kind of look like Ashton Kutcher. Remember that?
Oh,
People said that.
Yeah, in that same period of time where people said that, a family approached me at Busch Gardens and asked me for my autograph because they thought I was Jack Black.
Those are very different people.
Yeah. Me and Ryan were
very.
sitting in the fest house at Busch Gardens, and this family was like, "Wow, you look just like," and they were like, "Can we take a picture with you?" Like their sons, and I was like, "What?" And then they just did it, and they didn't get an autograph, and they were like, "Thanks, Jack," and they just left, and Ryan was just like, "Bro, what?" And of course, he tells his family, so then I go over to Ryan's house, they're like, "Hey, it's Jack Black," and I'm like, bro, I'm gonna go drive off a bridge."
Oh, jeez.
I've always had a complex about that ever since.
Every time he sees Jack Black, he's just like, I don't get it. I don't get it.
Of rage.
You.
Yeah,
I've been.
I got the other end of it every once in a while for being too skinny. I mean, I've been 6'2", and I was 155 up until I was into my 20s. So I was pretty thin.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not
Yeah.
like much bigger now, but I put on some more weight, so it looks a little more natural. But besides that, not a whole lot.
Yeah, I got the same thing growing up. I didn't start filling out until much later. So going into school, I was just skinny kid. And it didn't really matter until I started trying to play sports. And then at that point, if listen to our sports episode, uh, but I talked about being on football team and being called Rudy. I was the smallest guy out there, and that was playing sports was the only time I've really gotten the the body shaming. Just being the too small of a guy on a football team full of big muscle bound dudes who are in middle school. I don't know.
I don't know how this happened, but like,
Yeah, I was the smallest dude in middle school, so it didn't really work out. But that was, I would say, that's probably about it as far as body shaming.
well, go along with that. I mean, there's a statistic that we pulled up. It says 95% of guys report being body shamed at some point in their life. Which statistically means that I probably was at some point. I just don't remember. But I think that this probably goes across the board. I think that if you live in a society, especially a modern society like ours, where it's everything is visual, everything is seen, everybody has these ideals, whether their own personal or societal, and they apply that to people and who pass in front of them every day, and some people feel obliged to pass judgment on other people, and that's how we end up with situations like that.
I'm sure there's someone that has watched our YouTube videos and immediately thought something negative about us. So
Yeah.
Well, now that you
Probably.
said that, I'm probably gonna go cry. I never even thought of that.
no, as long as they don't comment about it themselves.
Yeah.
I know.
Well, I think with
But-
Steven, you podcast, or not podcast, you stream.
Yeah.
So have you experienced it in your streaming?
Oh yeah. People come in and try to attack me for anything. Like people come in and literally be like, "Oh, you wear a tank top, loser." And of course that just like you're a guy on the internet attacking another man for his clothing. Like
Yeah.
I don't get it, And to me, I just chalk that up to like they're self-conscious. Like they're
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? They're self-conscious. But I do get people will say like you got a big forehead, stuff like that. They'll call me old and random things like that. But I
Wow.
don't get too much. My stream will try to like make jokes and stuff. People who know that I'm 5'8" and that like Chris and them joke on me about it. So like Bob always tells everybody he's 4'2", he's 4'2", and just like random stuff like that. But outside of that, no, I mean it's basically people have said I got a big forehead, and I think one guy made a comment that I have shoulder hair or something. Like, that's not the first time I've heard that either.
Weird.
So I mean, I
What a
do though.
freak.
Like I do get a lot of shoulder hair. It's kind of trimmed down right now. I think I cut it a little bit ago, but I grow hair all the way up onto my shoulders. And when it gets long, there's just strands. The light will be like reflecting off random strands out here. But yeah, we turned it into a sound clip on my stream where it's like, oh, all he does is wear tank tops with shoulder hair. Like somebody said that. And I'm just like, oh, all right.
So, have any of you, or I'm sorry, any of you body shamed someone before, and do you regret it?
I think it's probably pretty safe to say that the majority of people at some point in their lives have looked at someone and be like, "Huh, fat."
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
It's just
definitely think
being
it's
honest.
yeah. I think it
Even if they
happens
don't say it to somebody.
more so in school age children. As adults, we
Yeah.
kind of filter ourselves a little bit better.
We
We may
do.
say it's a
We
I
do.
was
yeah,
say,
I don't think there are tons of people out there who don't.
this is true. But yeah, I think when children, school age children, and probably at the most pivotal time in their lives when they are growing and figuring out their bodies and going through all these changes, kids are very quick to go, "Hey, you don't look like the rest of us. You're the odd man out, and we're gonna call you out for whatever it is." And that's, it could be a very long list of different things that you may or may not be able to control. But yeah, very, very much so. I think I can tell you, I more than likely have made fun of somebody, especially during that adolescent age, making fun of somebody for being overweight or pimply. Well, I don't know. I wasn't I
Yeah.
wasn't I wasn't a mean kid, so I wouldn't say necessarily. But I know weight was one of the big things that a lot of kids made fun of other kids for.
Mhm.
Um, so I may have joined in a crowd making fun of somebody or
I
something.
would say at some point I probably made some sort of offhand comment. I don't think I've ever done it past like a certain age, like especially now. I remember it really stood out to me because it was a moment that I was superbly not proud of. I was playing Counter Strike against some guy that had recently, like, I saw a picture of. He had gone to a LAN or something like that, or we might have gone to the same LAN, and he was ripping into me in the game. And this was probably like, I don't know, somewhere between I was 21 and 25, maybe. And I reacted quickly and emotionally and basically said something about his weight. And I ended up like privately reaching out to him and apologize, like being like, "Hey, I was uncalled for. You're doing a great job with your weight loss." Like, I sent this thing. It was just like that was uncalled for, sort of thing. And that's the only time I can think of. I'm sure at some point back in middle school or high school, somebody probably said something. Or I was with a group and they said something about somebody, and I was like, "Yeah, they're fat" or something like. But since then, that's the only time I can think of where I outright was just like that person, like fatty or anything like that. Like yeah.
No, I mean, I see it all the time. Not directly to people, not to their face, but just in my line of work, we deal with some rather large people, sometimes pushing 400 or 500 pounds, or more. So people will make, after we've lifted them off the ground or into the medic, whatever we had to do, they'll make some rather brash comments. I don't really participate. I mean, I understand that those people obviously don't want to live that way, so I'm not gonna treat them like, you know, I don't know. I just don't feel any reason to be rude, even if it's not to someone's face. Um, there was one moment though that I don't necessarily know if it's body shaming per se, but now that I reflect on it, so I used to work with a guy named Luke, and Luke was 6'7". Um, and every time we'd go on a call, every time we walk into someone's house, and they'd be like, "Wow, you're so tall. Do you play basketball? How tall are you?" And they say, just go on and on and on. And he's used to it. He hears this 100 times a day. Gets these questions 100 times a day, and whatever. But people, I got in the habit where every time someone would ask him how tall he was, I would just add an inch, and so by the end of a shift, he'd be like 7'5". You know, and then it would get, I would start pulling out random numbers. People were like, well, how tall are you? I'm like, oh, he's 13'3". And the people would, just like dead serious. And obviously this is just a joke and it's all these things, but like maybe somehow like he was sensitive about that because it's something that he literally gets every day. He can't go in public without someone talking about it.
Yeah,
And then
people.
I'm just making fun of it, which we laughed about it, but I think of it, it's like, I don't know if it was again like it's like so many things like we joke about your height, like no one actually thinks you're short, maybe Chris does, but like
I'll
it's
shorten
just
it, Chris.
joking
Then
around,
would
you know what I
y'all
mean?
stop?
No,
Would
not at
you
all.
guys stop then? I think
We
it's also easier to joke about things that are like commonly,
seen as
unfortunately, like,
positive.
well, yeah. So like, when you're calling somebody fat, it's like, wow, that's messed up. When you're saying, oh, that person's short, oh, that's messed up. But when you're like, oh, you're tall, people are saying it, and at a point, especially when they're making a spectacle of it, it can be considered shaming, even though it's like something that you think is a good thing, maybe, right? Like telling people that they're skinny, or I wish I could be as skinny as you, but you don't know that they're trying to gain weight and they're tired of being skinny, or that it's
That was
unhealthy, you know?
I had that going on in school.
Yeah.
Yep.
So there are different ways of body shaming that people just don't realize, right?
Yeah.
Like even me. So, and this is probably in a way shaming people. I'll have people tell me about how they just can never gain weight. And I always end up saying something like, I would rather have to eat more than eat less. And to them, they're probably like, well, dude, I don't care what you'd rather like to
It's
do. Like,
I'm
I want
dealing
to
with
gain
this.
weight. Like, I don't care that you would rather be in my situation. I don't want to be in this situation. And so, in a way, like, I can understand why that could be slightly offensive. Just to have that approach, because I mean, in my head, yeah, I've always struggled to get as lean as I want to be, and you can only eat but so little, but you can always eat some more. So that's just the way that I always say it when people bring it up. I'm like, hey, dude, I'd rather have to drink a gallon of milk a day. You know, that's just what I say. But for some people, they're like, dude, I do that and it still doesn't work. So like, buzz off. You know?
Oh yeah. Well, we have a list of things that are guys are often feel ashamed about. So we'll kind of go through the list and we can talk about each topic a little bit here. But being too heavy, and
Yeah.
we've definitely spoken about that.
Yeah.
So um, I think that's probably the top thing for a lot of people because it's one of the hardest things to change because you've got to change a lot of aspects of your life when it comes to changing that. You know, it's your habits of eating, exercise. Sometimes it's a genetic thing, so you've got to overcome that as well. So there's a lot of factors in it. So that one probably hits the, I wouldn't say the hardest, but definitely hits a different point, I think.
I have a
It's
different
probably hits a broader
approach.
market.
It's definitely a broader market, especially here in the West and in the US in
Yeah.
particular. But I have a different approach on that because I think it's like one of the easiest things to do something about, and people just don't do it. Or kind of the way that you just positioned it, they make it seem too difficult,
Yeah.
right? I lost 50, 60 pounds to get down to 160 from like 210. That was the highest I had weighed on a scale, but I think at some point I was a little bit higher. It might have been 215, it might have been 220, right? At 5'8, I was a round boy. I carried it decently well, but like, you know, I was definitely overweight. I get down to 160. Yeah, it was difficult, but it wasn't as hard as everybody makes it out to be when they're big, in my opinion, right? I lost 50,
Yeah.
60 pounds, and I know everybody's different and all that, but people tend to put it up on this giant thing that requires such an insane amount of effort when you could make small changes to get the ball rolling. You could have just cut out soda, cut out sugar drinks, and so many people have lost 20 or 30 pounds by simply drinking less calories. Just don't drink your calories. And some people don't realize that when they have 2 bottles of this a day and 1 can of that a day, like just cutting that out is the 500 or whatever that people want you to get a deficit. Like that's
Oh
it.
yeah.
So I know that it can be difficult, but I don't think it's nearly as hard as people make it out to be to get to a good reasonable weight, to get really lean, to get like the athletes and the models. We're not talking about that. I'm not talking about you getting ready to go into a physique show and win at 5% body fat, but getting down to where like you're a healthier weight is not as hard as people make it out to be. They just won't do the work and they come up with excuses. That's my take on it because I see it time and time again.
I can
I
see
don't,
that.
I don't know. I've been trying to lose weight for a long time. I don't know what my issue is per se. It's probably discipline of some sort. Um, I did lose weight at some point. My highest ever weight is about 250. I before my first fire academy, I started working out a little bit. Lost a lot of weight during that fire academy. Um, was in pretty decent shape after that. I would say in the couple years after that, I got the lowest weight of my adult life, which is like in the 190s. And pretty much since then, I've been above 200. I think I've got as much as like 220 something. I pretty much float now in the past couple years around 215. Um, and I have not been able to get this down. I mean, I have tried all kinds of stuff. The fasting, eating specific foods, limiting my calories by a lot, limiting it by a little, working out, doing different types of
How
workout.
consistently were you with the limiting calories though? Like how
I've
long did you do it? And also were you weighing and measuring or were you guesstimating off of like menus and stuff?
just weighing. Oh, you talking about the
Like your
calories?
calories.
I'll just put in the foods into MyFitnessPal.
Okay. So, I mean, that is a great way to start, I think, to a degree. But if you really want to do it and you're starting to realize you're not seeing any more changes, weighing it out and finding the actual serving sizes and seeing like, oh, 68 grams is this much versus, oh, it says like my fitness pal says that this random dish that I get at this restaurant is 1200 when it's actually
Yeah, no, I know
1800.
some stuff like that is difficult. Like
Yeah.
something like
In general,
this
stuff is
last go,
difficult.
I've weighed just based on whatever the box says. You know, so like this cereal says it's 60 grams is this many calories, you know, whatever, and that's what I put in.
Hmm.
Um I realized a while ago that like I have an issue with portion control and things like that. I have not the healthiest relationship with food, to where I overeat to like pain every time. I can't not finish food. And that's something that I've worked on a lot that has gotten better. I feel like right now I'm making some decent progress. I don't have my scale available. I haven't weighed myself in a little bit, but just like body composition, like looking at myself, like I'm like, okay, I see some changes, you know, for the better. But I think when you think about it, you're like, it's easy, right? It's the logic of it is simple. Like you have to eat less, or you know, take in less than what you burn. Like that's just how it works. If you do that thing calorie wise, you will lose weight. But getting to that point and getting past yourself and the temptations and all the other stuff that goes on, whether it's the temptation of the food, temptation of social life, temptation of whatever, it's just tough. I'll never ever, like, I all the time at work, people will be like making fun of, or making comments about people's weight, and I having no empathy for the struggle because they've never actually carried any sort of excess body fat in their life. Like they've just never had to deal with that, of having to limit their calories or even having to worry about this to any extent. Um, and having dealt with that, and like my wife lost over 100 pounds. Absolutely nuts. No one believed it unless you saw the pictures. But so I know that it's possible. I've have it in my personal life. You know, my brother lost weight. She lost weight. Like people have done it, and which aggravates me even more. But yeah, so that was just me kind of, I guess I don't say necessarily think it's a counterpoint to what you were saying, Steven. I just think it's kind of an aside. Like yes, like logically it makes sense. Logically it's easy, but doing it, I think, I mean, if you just look at the world and you look at most people's attempts and most people's difficulties doing it, it's not as easy as we think it is. It's
Um,
simple to do, just hard to
I mean, I
see
think
through.
I think we could have a whole episode about that because again, this one's body shaming, and I want to respond, but to save us from continuing
That's
down this
that. Yeah,
rabbit
no, that
hole,
makes sense. That
like
makes
I'm
sense.
not
yeah.
going to. But
I
I
just wanted
under
to give the flip side.
yeah, no, I understand what you're saying, but I think people use it as an excuse to not act, and that's the main point. Is people are like, oh, it's so hard, it's so difficult, I won't be
I think
able
some
to.
people
But
maybe,
like,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, but
I mean,
I've
I
never,
it
I've,
is a number one market out there, weight loss
yeah,
and all the supplements and all the
yeah,
which are all
everything.
shortcuts. You
Oh
know,
yeah,
it's everybody's
there's a
looking
whole
for the faster way to do it. How can I
yeah,
lose 20 pounds in a week? You can't.
exactly.
Like,
So I mean, that goes to show you that a
cut a
lot of
leg
people
off.
are happy with their weight. So the fact that that market is so huge and people are tapping into it with all these different scams of tummy wraps and
hmm
all these different things, like there's so many, like you said, quick fixes out there that weight
So,
is a huge issue, no pun intended, for a lot of people.
yeah.
Yeah. All right. So on the flip side of that, we have too skinny.
Yeah, which we kind of touched on. You know, I talked
Yeah.
about, yeah, and well, you and Chris have both had experience with that. And I also said that, I've heard people talk about that. And even my response is, again, because, oh, you're skinny, like, oh, I wish I had that problem. But in a way, like, nobody wants to be the guy
nice.
who's called a stick and to,
Yeah.
feel,
Any problem can be frustrating.
yeah.
Yeah. When I was at my job, I actually had a similar conversation with a guy. I had a guy who he was a bigger guy, had lost a lot of weight. Now he's, a muscular dude and he's very happy with who he is and as he should be. He's a good looking guy. He's got himself together. So but at that time I'd started my job when I was in my 20s. So I was thin and I was like, look, I tried to bulk up and I just couldn't. I worked out. I done the whey proteins and stuff like that, and it just wasn't happening. And he kind of said the same comment of, I wish I had that problem. He said, if I can go back to having a clean slate and able to bulk up how I want, he said, oh man, my body would be totally different.
Mhm.
But I, yeah, I was on the flip side of that, and I was like, I mean, the grass is always greener.
It's like
Yeah.
that's
And
cool, but like that does not help me in any way.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. And even it's what we legitimately think, right? Because I know inside I'm like, dude, I would rather have started skinny and built up than have to like have, you know, the loose skin on my tummy or something because I was too big and now it's whatever. But like, just like you said, but that doesn't help. You're not helping in any way. Like you're
yeah.
just saying something to be like whatever about it, making it you, and it's just not necessary.
Chris, how many experience have you had a lot of experiences with being called too skinny?
Not a ton, honestly. Here and there through high school. I didn't I wasn't a very social person, rather I didn't talk to anyone in high school. So I didn't really give people much of a reason or an opportunity to talk about me. Well, at least not to my face.
I also
Yeah,
feel like
But
people who are
but yeah, I had
tall and
a
skinny get away with it a little bit more in terms of
yeah,
shaming.
yeah. Yeah, I had
yeah,
a real hard time putting on weight up until I hit like my early to mid 20s when I actually started gaining weight.
yeah. Yeah, it's so weird that people can have the polar issues and like you said, kind of want to swap.
Hmm.
Um, so we also have the not tall enough thing going on.
I,
So
I think we've gotten to the short of that already.
All
wow,
right, dude. You were holding on to that one.
No, it just
cut
came right
it
there, right there,
out.
bro. Just oh,
Um,
Ooh.
and I think especially among men, with the societal image of men, being the tall, muscular, coming out of the shadows and doing saving the day or whatever. A lot of
wait,
men suffer with that.
Batman?
That's it, man.
Like is the human male ideal Batman?
I
That's why he's
mean,
got the ears.
Who
He
wouldn't
doesn't
want to
feel
be
he's
built
tall
like
enough.
Christian Bale?
He doesn't
honestly
feel he's
though,
tall enough.
well, you listed all those other things like muscular and this and that. I'm pretty sure tall just saves you from needing all those other things. Like from the way some women talk out there, it's like, dude, if you're 6'4", who cares what the rest of you is like? Like you're 6'4", that's enough. So
Yeah,
I don't
and
know.
that's the thing. I think another perspective that we put on ourselves. And speaking of I'll go back to the weight issue briefly. My wife has a friend who lives overseas in the UK, and she had talked about guys like she didn't want a guy that was too skinny. She actually says she preferred a little fluff because she liked somebody to snuggle up with at night. So and she's a great looking person, used to be a dancer and all this stuff like that. So she's not like she's I guess what a lot of guys would picture as an ideal woman, but she's not looking for the same body type that she has. She's looking for somebody with a little bit more, or she's okay with somebody with a little bit more because she wants to snuggle up. So um, that that kind of thing. I said, guys, we do put an image on ourselves, and society does a lot of that too. We'll get into that, but yeah. So I think we give ourselves the perception that we need to be taller, and of course there are some um, outside influences, but I think we definitely put it on ourselves to want to be taller. I think a lot of men do want to be taller though, just
Yeah.
because of like I said, sports or whatever the
Well,
case may
I
be.
mean, it's just it seemed as more almost like masculine. It's and I don't know that how much is it external. If I wasn't constantly told that women want dudes who are 6 foot plus, I don't think I would really care at all. Like it doesn't impact my daily life. I can reach stuff, like I'm not out here like, dude, give me a step stool, like and I know that some people out there maybe at that point, maybe you're
Yeah,
5'2", 5'3", and like it's actually something that you have to like things have to change for you to be able to like do the same normal stuff. But like even then, like I don't think I would I don't care that much even now because we talked about in previous episodes. Like I do fine for myself for the height that I am, but like if I wasn't constantly told via social media, via Tinder profiles, via everything that if you're not 6 foot, don't talk to me by the 5'1" woman, then like I probably wouldn't think anything of it. But the 5'1" woman needs somebody who's 6'4". So
I think you hit the nail on the head there with the masculine part. And I think maybe it goes back to that. I want a protector. I want a guy who's the biggest out there, the tallest out there. So
Hmm.
when I'm walking with him, everybody's like, "Oh, he's don't mess with that guy," regardless of the weight he's carrying on that structure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, honestly, just walk around with a gun, you get the same effect. Dude, I
open
mean,
open carry.
just
We did it.
like they're less likely to to mess around with you.
Having that idea
It's
in your
true.
head of like, if you're X tall, no one's gonna mess with you is just kind of
That's
silly.
ridiculous.
It's silly because if someone wants to fuck with you, they don't care how big you are. They're gonna fuck with you because they
Like
want to
someone
fuck
is
with
like, man, I need to go rob someone so I can pay for this. And they're not gonna be like,
you. Like, ah, shit,
that
that dude's too tall.
that guy's 6'3", I can't do that. He might be able to, like I don't
I
what
mean,
benefit is
I
that?
know
Could
that
hook me up,
this
put me in his pocket.
this is just an example you guys are
He's gonna
giving,
dunk me.
like a fun analogy, but I'm pretty sure they do care about that. Like they pick
Yeah,
the weak. They do pick the grandmas and the
no,
ladies.
I get that.
So
but
like,
I don't. If you give them a choice, right? If there's like people perfectly spaced apart, and it's like, oh, there's a 6'3" guy and there's a 5'2" guy, sure, okay, maybe. But like, I still don't necessarily think that you're just not ever going. You're less susceptible to crime because you're a certain height.
yeah,
But it may come down to, and I said I'm speaking loosely out there because I'm not a woman and I don't have the mindset of a woman. I can't speak for them. I'm neither am I trying to, but maybe that's the way they feel.
Maybe.
Maybe they feel that hey, he's taller, so therefore that comes with certain things and advantages or whatever in life. And I want somebody who has that for those benefits, whatever they
yeah,
may be.
yeah.
And then maybe that I think, like you said, the masculinity part of it is a large part of that. A lot of women don't want to be the bigger person in a relationship, so they also want a guy who's bigger with them, bigger than them, whether it be weight or height, so they don't feel
Well, that's where it's like it doesn't transition from times where actually being the biggest was helpful, right? Like way back, right? You're talking like hunter gatherers, like you
It's
want the
like
dude.
primordial urge.
Yeah, so
yeah.
it's just like, is there some sort of like biological thing that kind of is more attracted to somebody who has a larger stature because that person can fend off the predators? That person can better, find food and stuff like that. And maybe that ties into it. And maybe that's just an excuse people use. But either way, I mean, it's clear that far more people are attracted to tall than they are short. Even if there are people out there who are okay with all, people out there who actually
Yeah.
prefer short, like it is evident that people prefer tall. And that's goes in one of these things where we talk about being too heavy or being too skinny. Those are things that can really be altered, whether or not they're difficult or not. They can be altered by choices, whereas height can't, right? You're stuck with that. And for anything that people are stuck with, I feel like that people should be way less critical of those sorts of
Yeah.
things. They're not chosen. Nobody chooses their height, and they can't change their height. So leave them alone,
Which
right?
is funny because like when you say that, like when we talk about body shaming as a society, it's almost always about weight. Sometimes I guess secondary to that could be features that someone may have, but it's typically something to do with weight. And if you've got, say, a woman or a man who has two different profiles, everything's the same. It's them, but one says, no one under 6 foot, and the other one says no one over 170. Which one is actually going to be considered body shaming? It's going to be the weight one, right? No
Yeah.
one. It's and it was just crazy. I mean, it's not like I don't think you should be like these are stupid things to base anything off. But it's crazy that there is that kind of difference. Like it just seems like it's you're discussing the same thing. You're looking at someone's body and deciding, you know, externally. Like you're not keeping this to yourself. You're not meeting them and being like, "Oh, this isn't going to work." Like you're literally just putting out there saying you are unworthy of my attention if you don't meet these certain body parameters. I think that they're both ridiculous. I think
very much so.
I know Steven agrees with me and whatever. It's so I don't know. I don't think there's any difference. I understand like it is controllable. Some things are not controllable. That stuff like that. But it's just fucked up either way.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Again, I'm not saying like it's okay to do one or the other, but
Why not?
I am much sterner about things that can't be changed.
That
Like,
makes
there's no
sense.
point talking about it because they didn't choose and they can't do anything about it. So
Yeah.
what value,
Like,
you
what do you
know?
expect me to
Yeah,
do?
like
Yeah.
nothing can change. There's absolutely no reason for it, you know? Like,
Yeah.
doesn't make sense.
So
Same
the
thing.
next topic up here.
Was
Oh,
there
go
was
ahead.
too tall and skin color. Too tall, I feel like we basically already covered, right? Like that's
Yeah.
the same thing, you know. I don't know if everybody has any big points to make about that, but the other one, skin color, that's another one. You're not changing that, you know.
No.
Like that's you're born with it. It's the way that it is. Shouldn't matter to people the way that it does.
Yeah. And I was surprised to see that on the list.
That's
I'd
just
never
called
really
racism.
yeah, I never really thought of it
Yeah.
as I never really thought of it as body shaming. But yeah.
In a way, so like, I know in some places in the world, um, and even like in here, like I'm going, we grew up in a city that is majority African American, and seeing people get shamed because their skin was really dark,
Oh yeah.
by other people, like,
Yeah.
and then seeing kind of the I guess this elevation of light skin, people over stuff like that, and you see that like it's not it in cult in I guess with races and cultures where like there is a significant variance in skin color and tone. Like I think it's a fairly common thing. Like with white folks, like where there's not a lot of variance per se. Like you
Yeah,
have
you
people who
like
tan a
call people.
lot,
Yeah,
I
you
was gonna say, the
call people
people that are
pale.
but
overly
like
tan.
Yeah,
but
you have
like
that and
other than
people who are
that, like
pale.
yeah, and pale, and I guess some people will make fun of you for that and that kind of thing. But I just don't think it's anything like what it is with other races and cultures.
Yeah.
So I've never experienced it, but I've seen it for sure.
Well, I do know that with a lot of that is in doctrine with slavery in America, where
Hmm.
they chose light skinned people who had already been interracial and gave them certain privileges to help, you know, separate and cause tension between black people on a plantation. So therefore, there was not going to be any uprising between those inside and outside. The ones inside had already been outcasted from the group of people outside. So therefore, hey, you're not part of us. You're not one of us. We don't like you, and it helps keep that control. All goes back to Jim Crow, but that's a whole nother story. But I do know in other cultures, like Asian cultures, um, having fair skin is so much a thing that I've seen pictures and videos of people wearing like bodysuits out onto the beach because they don't want any sun on their body at all. So for fear of, I don't know, being looked at as like a, I don't know if it's like you're a working class person or
No, that's a
I
good
don't quite
point.
know. I don't quite
You're
know.
more you're more likely to have darker tanned skin if you're working class, and if you've never lifted a finger to do anything in your life, you're more likely to be pale.
So it
That makes
becomes
sense.
a
Yeah, when you
status
look at like the
symbol.
K-pop and the J-pop idols, they all have the same look.
Oh, very pale.
Dark hair, very very light pale skin, and that's just what they want. That's what people want to see.
Yeah. So the next one we have is not enough muscle, and I think that specifically speaks to a lot of men and I guess their own internal body shaming as well as external.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I don't think I've ever experienced in my life where someone has commented on, my musculature or anything like that. Like, and I don't really, I've never seen or heard from a woman complain about it. You know what I mean? I don't, I think it's one of those things, what the saying is like, I don't lift, we don't lift for the girls, we lift for the boys. Like we care more about our own muscle and our friends and like other dudes than any woman ever would.
I think this is more prevalent in like a sports environment, right? Like this is where someone might be like, "Yo, you're small or you're frail or you're something like that." Isn't like playing
I can see that.
sports,
I can
being
see
out,
that.
but like, yeah, no, in
Somewhere where
everyday
like,
life, yeah, people aren't just like, "Yeah, dude, you're not packing enough muscle on those arms." You know, like that doesn't happen as
yeah,
much. I don't think.
Well, it may not be a verbal conversation, but like even say in business, when I'm meeting different people for the first time who come by my job, vendors come by to inspect stuff or pick things or whatever, that handshake, right? That firm handshake. I got that grip. I'm the bigger guy. I'm the muscular guy. Like, once again, I don't know if it goes back to some caveman aspect of ourselves, but we're sizing each other up. and like, "Oh, I'm the bigger dude here, so I know I got control of the situation. I'm the dominant one." Um, so those kinds of things I think happen with men, whether it's vocalized or not. And a guy may feel a certain way if you're out and about and you see this big dude and you're like, you know, I wouldn't mess with him. So I don't know.
I mean, to be fair, this is just a list of things that guys feel ashamed about, not a list of things that people make fun of guys.
Oh, fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, these are just things people feel ashamed about. So yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, dudes are out there like, oh, again, we hold ourselves to these idols. So they go and look at the latest Thor movie, and they're just like, dang, dude, I don't look like that. And then like they're ashamed, they don't feel muscular and stuff like that. So yeah, I was definitely approaching this of like things that people were like picked on for, but this is things that dudes feel ashamed about themselves. So
To
that
be
that does
fair,
change a little bit.
it's most of these have kind
Can
of
be
been
both sides, yeah.
both sides. So
Yeah, I'm just
But yeah,
saying,
no, it makes sense.
no one needs to tell me that I don't have enough muscles for me to think that, I could be a little more muscular.
Yeah, that's fair.
Someone doesn't need to tell me that for me to feel that way.
And then muscle's not defined enough. I feel like kind of goes back to just like being too heavy or not having enough muscle. It's just a combination of those two things in some degree when it comes to that.
Muscle
Muscle is more
dysmorphia, though,
fun.
is a little bit different.
yeah,
You have a lot of professional bodybuilders, athletes that are to the common man are in great shape, and they're cut, they're shredded, they're huge, but to them it's still not good enough.
Yeah.
to them they're like, bro, you look like shit. You could, I mean, you're one of the best looking dudes on earth, and you're looking in the mirror thinking that like you look like you just woke up on a cardboard blanket in the gutter. You know what I mean? Like it's just that's
Yeah.
mental illness, love. Like that's from our other episode.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's just more like a more specialized version of just body dysmorphia in general.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So balding, I spoke about this.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's one of those things also, I think, where, like I said, body shaming and weight not is more serious than in other forms as far as, societals, looking at it. But balding, the jokes, do come just like short, oh, you're short, oh, you're bald, those types of things. And, a lot of people do feel self-conscious about those things. I don't know if it happens as much like as in a serious, like making fun of, more than in like a light thing. But I know it affects people differently. Like
And
I personally wouldn't care, but
yeah, I know there's a lot of people who do feel. I mean, it affects them a lot. Like I
yeah,
know guys at work who you will never see them without a hat on.
yeah,
And if you didn't know, you wouldn't think they were bald because the hair is right here. They got hair
yep,
right at that hat line, but like it's looks like a full head of hair. They take that thing off, bro. It's shining like a floor. Like it's in
yeah,
like they like if you mess around like so I remember this one guy, like someone walked by and they knocked his hat off. You've never seen someone move so fast in your life. It was like a ninja how fast he got this thing back on. But like that's how much it affects some people.
yeah,
Yeah.
And
I think for a
no
lot
one
of
even has to
people,
say anything about that. Like that's just their own. Like they've just internalized this issue.
yeah,
I think for a lot of people, the shame comes in the balding process. I think when somebody fully accepts, like I'm bald and they just own it and go bald, people don't really comment on it much. They're not
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
oh,
yeah,
you're bald. It's the process of it. The fact that you are balding that people tend to pick on, when they can see it visually, when they, it's like Asmongold, right? Big streamer, whatever. Like he has long hair, but like, you can see he just kind of swoops it over because it's like bald a ways back. And his stream just dogs on him the whole time for it, basically. They call him like, I don't remember. There's like nicknames Bald Asmon, like Baldman, stuff like that. And they make like characters in games that are bald with like the red facial hair and whatnot. But it's just, I think it's more so that process of balding that people have a problem with. And again, it's one of those things where, yeah, I think there are ways to combat it, but it's genetics, right?
yep,
It's just, male pattern baldness, or it's just you get older and, test levels drop and hair starts to, it's like natural things that happen that you can't, change them. It's not necessarily your decisions that cause it. And yet people are like shamed by it. I don't think this one's as prevalent as maybe it once was. I feel like I hear way less people talking about somebody balding now than I did
yeah,
10 years
Yeah.
A
ago.
lot more
you
people
know?
are just embracing it now.
Yeah, they're just
yeah,
going, "Poof,
for sure.
poof, cool, I'm bald. Like, no biggie.
Plus,
yeah,
if you
That's
ever
what I feel
see
like
a
I
dude
am.
that's balding or is bald, just remind them that Johnny Sins has accomplished so much.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
we did have a coworker who used to be very proud about his hair, and one day he came in, gone, just gone, nothing up there. And we're like, what? And somebody did acknowledge it in one of our meetings. They're like, what in the world? And the only thing they said was like, welcome. One of the other guys, he's already bald. He was like, hey man, welcome to the club. And then we all moved on.
Yep.
And so nobody really cared. But I do think it's one of those things that internally we are looking at ourselves like, oh, this is going on. And people are like, bro, I don't care.
Yeah.
You had it one day, it's not here, and I'm moving on.
You attach part of yourself because you've always had it, right? Until you
Yeah.
don't have hair, you had hair.
Yeah.
Like it was always a part of you. When you looked at yourself, you saw hair on your head, and it's that just like process of losing it that you just like, oh crap, So
Yeah.
I get that. I get that for sure. Like I said,
Yeah.
in another episode, I think the one on aging, I said that my hair is thinner right now, and I'm still hoping that it's just the COVID like thinning. Because my hair is
Yeah.
definitely thinner, but I don't know that like I'm not getting a crown. I'm not getting like, so what the hair lady when I was getting it cut was like, you don't have an island. Like you're not getting an island, you're not crowning, but
Yeah.
it's thin. Like my hair is definitely thinner. So, like I said in that one, if it happens, it happens. Do I want it to? No. I like my hair. But if it happened, would I be like, oh no, what will I do with my life? No. But I understand that some people do attach and they get used to it and stuff like that. So,
Yeah. So the next one is body hair.
Shoulder hair.
yep, shoulder
Oh,
hair,
yeah.
dude. Yeah, I get that. I never thought it was a problem. I thought it's like men are hairy because I'm a hairy dude, right? Like I
Yeah.
got hairy shoulders, I got a hairy chest. I mean, I trim this stuff up. I shave it all the way down the belly button, down to the nether regions. My butt cheeks are hairy, like my legs are hairy, like everything is hairy. I'm hairy all over. And I never really saw it as a problem. People point out the shoulders hair, but I've also had like a woman or two in the past who have like pointed out the fact that I'm really hairy. Not necessarily like, oh, gross, you're hairy, but they just be, yo, you're hairy. And I'm like,
It's
yeah.
like, yo, dog, like, whoa.
And I'm like, yeah, but like, I'm a man, like
man, I'm a
I got-
hairy man.
I got hair because I'm a man. So
I'm hairy as shit too. Like,
yeah, it's genetics. I don't
yeah,
think
I've
dad's
never-
that hairy though.
no, not at all. Not anywhere near.
Yeah, like what the heck, dude? Does all hair come from the mom's side? Like
Maybe.
her dad, because he's got all the hair is just on his head. Like that's it. Dad don't got hair anywhere else.
I don't know. Like, I've never really felt any sort of way about it.
Well, I
I
think
actually, I should say, I don't feel any. I've never felt any shame about it. I have more pride in being hairy than the like. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. To
Yeah.
me, it's just like I'm a hairy man.
Yeah, that's what
Yeah.
I thought.
That's it. You know what I
That's
mean?
what I
Like,
thought.
no one's
There's
ever
a
complained
lie.
about it. That's it. Yeah.
Well, I think it falls in and out of fashion with
Yeah.
society and media. 'Cause, we joke about the taco meat. You got the taco
Bro,
meat
I'll let
hanging out.
that out, baby.
So
Throw a gold chain in that.
is there
Ooh.
in the 70s? That was the thing, man. You had some chest hair poking out. Like people were gluing like hair onto their chest to try to make themselves look like they had something when they went out and opened their shirt up a little bit. And then of course went through the 90s where they wanted everybody to look like seals and everybody was slick and hairless, and so in and out of fashion. And I think that of course that sways people's minds on how things should look.
Yeah, so I'm actually on the opposite end of that one, to where I have very sparse body hair. I'm half Asian, so I don't have a lot of body hair in general. But where I do, it's very thin and it's kind of all over the place. Like just my face, I can't grow much more than just this here.
I feel you,
Um,
brother. This is like
Yeah,
2 years of
if
growth
anyone's
for those who
actually
are watching.
a YouTube video, my shirt, the top of my shirt is open. There's nothing there. You see nothing. So I don't have a lot of body hair.
See, and I've never said anything, huh? But I'm 5'8" allegedly. It's not-
you
it's
are
not right.
allegedly 5'8".
It's not
Sometimes
right,
I
man.
think you're
Yeah.
small.
I don't say anything, dude.
Not
next-
Yeah,
evident.
hairless baby. Yeah, baby, smooth as a baby.
I have hair on my legs. I have normal hairy legs. I
Likely
got
story.
hair on my belly.
Does it stop like at your knee? I've always been curious, like how it works. Because
No,
of
it
course
just-
I'm hairy the whole lower body. I mean, it's just all
it's,
hair.
it's a lot thinner in the thigh area.
Oh, okay, yeah, nah.
I was gonna say I've got full wool pants on, but
Yeah, I mean,
I don't my legs are like normal hairy up until you get to the thighs, and then it's a lot thinner.
what about your butt cheeks?
My butt cheeks are. It's about the same, honestly. They're not super hairy, but
I was gonna
parts
say
of it are hairy.
I'm pretty
Others.
sure last time I saw them, they seemed pretty smooth.
Smooth. Yeah, I'm pretty sure
Yeah.
last time I saw them, they were smooth as well.
Same.
Mine, I'm like a Wookie.
Yeah, no,
I
I have a
am
lot of body hair.
You could scrub
I
a
am
pan
hairless.
with these cheeks.
I'm very
Iron
hairless.
wool.
Yeah, but a lot of guys do feel self-conscious about it, and I can definitely see people having body shaming going on if you're once again school age
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
the locker room for kids in sports or going through that time period of going to gym.
I don't remember having
all
hair
of this
then.
all of this stuff kind of comes out. Well, I've had some dudes in school who were they look like grown men.
Yeah. I
Like,
feel
people be
like,
like,
I
"Why
had
is this
the
teacher
hair.
in
Maybe
here?"
I just didn't think about it. Like,
Yeah,
I
so
don't think
but
I like turned 20 and it was like, all right, now you got hair all over your butt. You know, like.
yeah, so
Mm.
body shaming. I think a lot of this will apply to the school age. Like I said, as adults, we start to taper off of some of this stuff.
Start to just not care as much because
Yeah. Yeah, you just accept it.
You don't
Yeah.
need to spend so much time caring about what other people look.
No,
Yeah.
but the next one here, a lot of the men on the Be Honest Man podcast they're gonna have an opinion about it. But the next one is genital size. So a lot of men feel ashamed about it, and body shaming. I think is very accepted with this. It's become a societal joke.
Hmm.
Oh, you're the small guy, or yeah, it's not enough down there.
Drives a big truck. He's got a small dick.
Needing a couple more inches, or whatever the case may be. It's a widely discussed topic. But obviously
I view
that has
like the height
created.
one. Like, it's you're born with what you're gonna get, and you
Yeah,
can't do anything about it. And there's not really, yeah. I mean, you can't change it.
no,
So
yeah. There's a big market for trying to change it,
yeah.
and I'm sure people are doing
And if
some
it
crazy
worked, you
things.
best believe insurance would support it. Like, it would be like a free.
If it worked, it wouldn't be going straight to my spam folder.
There you go.
But yeah, no, I mean that is one, and I think it's become more prevalent. I think I've mentioned it before that there's like a big. Well, I don't know if I mentioned this on here. I know I've mentioned that like you'll see stuff in like Tinder bios that'll be like you got to be 6 feet, you got to make six figures, you got to have at least 6 inches, you got to that sort of thing. And there's also a big podcast. It's like a ladies podcast, and the two ladies like basically spread around like hold yourself like ladies have your standards, like they need to have the 3 6s or 4 6s. I think they do a six pack in there. So it's like 6 foot tall minimum, 6 figure job minimum, 6 inch weenie minimum, and like six pack abs minimum. And this is like the standard that everybody's telling everybody to go out there and get. And it's just like that's
Go for it, dude. It's a pretty small pool.
Whatever makes
yeah,
you happy,
exactly.
you know.
Exactly. Well, so that
you do you.
Says the woman who has no wiener.
exactly.
No.
You don't have 6 inches. What are you bringing to the table? You're 5'2", no weenie, no abs. What the
Start
heck?
putting that on your Tinder.
Yeah, man, you got to be 6 feet, have 6 inches. Like,
Yeah, and I don't know how much shaming goes on openly about this. I'm sure like in a relationship I don't know.
Hopefully
Probably
not
so
in
much
a
Yeah,
relationship.
not in a relationship.
Well,
maybe
Unless
I
that's
like
your
mean-
thing.
like a
Okay,
hookup.
I will tell you this. I have not had much dating experience. I've had 2 long-term relationships, and then I got married. So
mhm.
that was about it. So I did not play the field, I would say. So I don't know what goes on with dating, and do people talk about your genitals, or how anybody want to chime in on any of that? Do people comment? You don't have to say what they say, but do they talk about your genitals?
I've never dated anyone or, slept with anyone. They said, man, it's too small. I can't do it.
Yeah, I
It's
can
never
say,
happened.
and as probably the most experienced person here with different partners, I could say, yeah, I mean, there's never been a case where somebody up front at any time was like, that we pulled it out and they were just like, I can't do anything with that, like, and, I've looked up the stats and I'm in there, but either way, it is, I still think something that one I've talked about like in the porn one, I think that messes up our heads and sets standards.
For sure.
So I think there's that where you start to compare yourself to dudes who are, they got the fish lenses and just naturally they have massive dongs. I think that
Also,
there's
the actresses are generally very small
yeah,
people.
yeah. So they'll be like, 5'2" with this massive guy who has a big one, but like it just makes it look more right. This is all special effects that make it look even larger, even though they are very large compared to the average person. So I think there's that, right? The industry sets a standard. I also think that people are very misguided in numbers and measuring. So, there's something where like if you measure it on the side, you're gonna gain half an inch to an inch. If you measure it from the bottom up, you're gonna get longer. But if you go straight like the normal way, then like that's what you're actually at. And so who knows? Like a guy gets with a girl, and let's say he has a 5.5, which is in the total normal range, and then he measured it from the side, so he's a 6.5. He tells her 6.5, so she thinks the smallest she'll take is a 6.5. Tells the other guy, that guy's now ashamed because he has a 5.5, and then like it starts to spiral because the number of women out there who are like, oh yeah, dude, like all I sleep with are 8-inch cocks, and I'm just like, oh okay, well,
It's like, bro, what?
where are they at?
Like in a room of 100 people, like he's the only
Yeah.
one.
Yeah. So,
Like,
but
your
see,
dick finding skills are fucking immaculate.
but I mean, so I also want to know. I think that some of it is skewed when where they get this idea is because you have to think, right? Because of the shame, a lot of the dudes out there that make the average that like 5 to 5.5 range, which I believe it is. I think globally, I think in the States it might be slightly higher. Maybe it's 5.5 to 6.
5.17 or something like
Yeah,
that.
globally, but like in the States, I think it's
Yeah,
slightly
yeah.
higher. So let's just say 5.5 to like 6 or something, right? People who are probably below it, let's say somebody's a 4.5 or a 5, right? Are they going out and seeking partners? They might not be because they're ashamed. And therefore it skews the average for women's experiences. If you get what I'm saying, right? So they don't
Yeah, I get
experience
it.
the guy who has a 4 because he's not trying. He's too ashamed. And therefore they think the average is more like a 6 or a 7 because that's what they get most often because they're not getting the bottom end of the extreme. They're getting the middle and the top. So I do think that's another reason why there's like a misconception, which then leads to more men thinking, oh, they all want 7s and 8s and 9s and like all I have is a 6. So what am I supposed to do? And stuff like that. Then you have people who think they're too skinny down there. You have people who think they're too short. You have people who think, all sorts of things because there's like all these different. I mean, you got people who care about their balls. Like I never thought about that, but it's like,
Yeah.
are my balls
Now I'm
big enough?
stressed out
Do
about
they
my
do they
balls.
hang well enough? Like, are they droopy enough? And I'm like, the balls, I got enough to worry about with the other one. I don't need to worry about the balls. Like,
Yeah,
yeah,
it's very weird that we have put these kind of, I don't know, standards out there for and we're always trying to measure ourselves up. All of this stuff is measuring yourself up to somebody else, and
Yeah, and that's the thing, man. It's like 90% of the time when it comes to genital size, it's all self-inflicted. Like Steven said, like it's this perception because of pornography, of thinking that all women want, and also it seems the majority of penises out there because like most often the only other penises you are seeing other than your own are going to be on some
And
sort of
films.
film or media.
yeah.
And so like not only your personal experience of seeing penises, but then just you're like, damn, bro, like I'm really not measuring up. And
All right, we're all whipping them out.
I'm about to say,
So,
we're gonna
like-
start a movement.
yeah, all right, be on it, real honest, man.
Unleash the cops.
Oh, I'm not ready.
It's not.
So
I don't want to be that
cold.
honest.
It's cold in here, bro. Like, give me a minute. Let me. No, but like, this is self-inflicted because, like, I don't know, maybe I don't know how many, maybe 5, 6, 7 partners, whatever. But like,
Wow.
no one has ever said anything.
Hoochie.
Seems like that's
But, like-
it. That was my week.
Okay.
But no, like no one has ever said anything, and yet for so long in my life, I was ashamed. I've only gotten compliments, and yet I was just like, bro, like, what am I gonna do? What can I do? Especially like when I was younger, I was so fucking stressed about that, like, and it took, until, I don't even know when, but like it took a long time until I realized it's like, bro, I'm good. Like I have nothing to worry about, first of all, because no one really cares. Are there women out there that care? Size queens, whatever you want to call them? Like, sure, that's their thing. Just like you may be like, I don't want to date a chick because her boobs are too small. Like, whatever, dude. Like, everyone has their
I
preference.
hate that comparison.
whatever the comparison is.
But that
everyone
is
has
such
their
a
preference. I
poor
don't care about the-
comparison
I
because
don't
it
care
doesn't
about the
directly
comparison.
like it doesn't
Do not care
directly
about the
impact
comparison.
experience.
We'll apply whatever to the vagina. So
Fair.
the fact of the matter is
They
that
feel the same.
there are very few people that care, and the people that do are probably going to be, well, hopefully upfront about it. And if it doesn't work, bro, that doesn't matter. Like, that's one person you have a dealing with in your entire lifetime. Now, is there like a societal thing with it? Yeah, for sure. I mean, people make comments about it all the time. Like, big dick energy was the trend a couple years ago,
yeah,
you know, and
yeah, it's
You still hear
you know,
it's still
you know,
it's still
and
around
obviously-
here.
It doesn't mean you have to have a big dick. You know,
yeah, you just got the energy of one.
You just got to act like you do.
Yeah, but it's the whole
It's
it's
still the
connected to a
insinuation.
positive. Yeah,
It's still the
that's a good thing.
insinuation that, like, to be like this kind of confident dude, it's the big dick. You know what I mean? So, like, it's that
And
insinuation.
then somebody says you got the energy, and then you're like, "Oh crap!" Like,
All I got is the
It's
energy.
just
I'm
the
only
energy.
50% there.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's definitely like this whole societal thing, you know, whether it's you know, just, you know, in song lyrics or, you know, in, you know, jokes or in whatever, like it's a thing, you know, like people will say they drive a big truck or they drive a sports car, they must have a small, they're compensating, whatever, like it's just a thing. Now, is it enough that I'm gonna, you know, get upset and say, oh, body shape, blah blah blah, and compare it to whatever else? Like, no, I don't give a fuck. No one should give a fuck. It's just people being stupid. But like, there's this whole thing. I mean, it's a huge topic with a lot of different facets to it. From young men who are super self-conscious for no reason and spend so much of their time stressing about these things, possibly hurting themselves, trying to make changes to something that doesn't need any changes.
Yeah.
Like, that's it. So you've got the kids dealing with that, to like stereotypes and things like that. Whether it's like, this race is small, this race is big, and then like people in those spectrums having to have partners and
Have these
maybe not
expectations.
living up to whatever
Yeah,
that expectation
adds
may be.
the shame of
Being-
like they're expecting this even
or
more
being
so.
fetishized because
Yeah.
of their race. Like, it's just fucked up.
Yeah.
But like, all of this shit is because of just, I mean, it's mostly being exposed to a shit ton of porn with no real world education of what sex is or what humans are supposed to look like, and then just fucking just running wild with it. And
Yeah.
it's just, you know, I wish that we could go back and, you know, or at least to myself and to every young man, and just shake the shit out of him and be like, bro, just don't worry about it. There's nothing you can do, even if there was something that you should be worried about.
I said in I think the porn episode, that I think that's one of the only benefits of the like new age. That's all like super amateur, all the OnlyFans, all that. You see,
Yeah.
like, and all the stuff around that, you see way more people that you're just like, oh, yeah, dude, cool.
He just like me.
Yeah, I kind of have something like that. That's,
just
you
like
know,
me for
she
real.
looks like she's having a good time, you know, like that's cool. Because if you're watching full blown productions, and even a lot of this stuff, like there are male performers who meet up with OnlyFans models and stuff. They're still the giant dudes with the giant dongs, but the people who are making it with their boyfriend and their girlfriend, those are typically a little like more normal. And you're going, okay, yeah, maybe he is still a little bit bigger, but like it's normal. It's not like, holy cow, that's a forearm. You know, like
Yeah.
this is a more normal thing. And so that does help with that education aspect, or at least the, okay, I don't feel so out of place that so many men probably have. I also, in discussions with women where this has come up, they don't believe that a lot of men think and stress about this sort of stuff.
That's
But like,
interesting.
just from this, like, I think we all know that, yeah, they do. Like, men
yeah.
do think and stress about this. Like, it's a big part of who we are as a man to us. And so the idea that we don't, like, some women are just like, no, like, I don't think that. And I'm like, trust me, even the dudes that you've got with who are probably larger than normal, they probably at some point have thought like, oh, this isn't enough. You hear stories
yeah.
about dudes who are like an inch, 2 inches above average who still think they're not enough.
No, for sure. Like we were talking about this. It came up at work the other day. So we were talking about you know, this guy's a peer, he wanted to get on. He was offered to be on the peer fitness trainer thing, and he's a guy that lost a lot of weight, and he's done it. And he was like, you know, everyone's talking about you can lose weight, you can look better, whatever. And he was like, bro, just tell them for every, you know, I don't remember the exact numbers he gave, and I know they're not that
20
accurate,
pounds.
but it was, You know, whatever pounds of weight you lose, you're getting an inch of visible penis. And he's like, what dude doesn't want more down there? And like, so one of the girls is like, bro, that's not. He was like, no, you could ask any man in the history of the earth at any time, is he happy with his penis? It could be hanging down to his knees. He's gonna be like, I don't know, a half inch wouldn't be bad.
Maybe just a little bit, you know.
So like, yeah, like, are there guys out there who are of all sizes who are happy with what they got? Absolutely. Applaud those dudes. Like, you have reached some serenity with when it comes to your genitalia. But there's so many people on the full spectrum who are stressed about it for no reason.
Yeah. Internal body shaming with some mild external forces.
Yeah. And it's tough because going back to the point where you said you knew no complaints or anything like that, you know, and I've had quite a few partners in my time, and many of them have come back 2, 3, 4 times. And at times I still convince myself. And I'm like, they keep coming back. They're clearly having a good time, like whatever. And at times I'm still like, dang, you know, like, am I not lean enough? Is it not big enough? Am I not tall enough? Am I like everything? Like, you still have those doubts, and it's all eternal. They're not telling me those things. They keep coming back. They're telling me the opposite, right? And then still
Repeat
it's just
customers.
like, yeah, exactly. And that's the best defense that I can ever give myself when I have these moments of doubt or anything. Is just like, did they keep coming back when they didn't have to? This wasn't a relationship. They weren't stuck, right? Like, they're not locked in. These were literally people who were choosing to have only this and this alone with me, which means they could, if it was just that, they could get something else, and they chose not to. But you still get in your own head, and you get lost in it, and you go down rabbit holes, and yeah.
Oh yeah.
All right, next up.
We got wrinkles and the effects of aging
Okay.
with body shaming.
I mean, maybe dudes like do this to themselves, but I think that as a society, this is something that dudes just don't worry about near as much as, like, say, women do. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, there's more products coming out these days. Maybe there's more people worrying about it. Maybe in certain, you know, subcultures and stuff like that, it's more worried about. But like, I don't know that I've ever heard a dude be like, bro, do you see these laugh lines? Oh, my forehead wrinkles? You know, like, I just don't think it's something that, at least personal to me, like,
Chris
I would take more pride in that than I would anything else.
Chris ashamed me for that.
Well, Chris, we've already established that Chris is a really, really mean person.
Yeah, whenever I remember I brought up that I didn't think we had aged much, and you're like, I see it in your like your eyes,
did?
and I see it like you
I
pointed
do
that out
remember
many
that.
times.
Yeah, I'm just really funny.
He just masks everything. He's like, I'm just really funny, you short, wrinkly old man. Like, not old.
Hey, you're saying it, man, not me.
Yeah.
But I think it's also one of those things with body shaming where it's the double standard is there, where it's okay to make fun of a guy wrinkling, but don't dare bring up a woman's wrinkles or skin.
It's like you're not supposed to ask a woman how old she is.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Exactly.
I actually say that, like, so all the time at work, I have to ask people, you know, two questions, which is how old are you and how much do you weigh? And I always say, like, I know this is inappropriate for me to ask, or I know I shouldn't ask this, but how much do you weigh? You know?
No,
But
they
I
should be
never say that
aware.
for dudes. Never once have I said that to a dude.
Yeah.
I'm like, bro, I don't mean to offend you, but how much do you weigh? Like, no, like, you're right. There is that kind of double standard.
Yeah.
There is for a lot of these things, though.
Yeah.
Because we're at a time where we're very much like women's empowerment, women, you know, all that love your body, all that sort of jazz, cool, whatever. But it's not the same for men. And the height thing and the penis thing and all these things do that. Because in one post, the same influencer would be like, love women, we should have plus size this and plus size that. And the next one, it's like, if he doesn't have an 8-inch cock, leave him behind. And it's like, well, hold on just a second. You know?
I mean, it makes sense. You know, women plus size. She wants you to have a plus size dick.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, yeah. Actually, when you say it like that, all right. Nope.
No,
right.
no argument. All right, so we've got skin issues. So I have atopic dermatitis, eczema, and I've never really had any. This is a recent development. I haven't had this my whole life. But there was one point where it was really kind of bad, and I was getting like light spots on my face. And as a black man, having these little white spots, people are like, "What the heck is that?" I did have one coworker asked him. He's like, "What's going on with your face?"
Jeez,
And I was like, "Wow."
bro, what's wrong with your
I was,
face?
What's wrong with your fucking
wow.
face, dude?
I was like, I didn't know where to go with it because I was already feeling self-conscious and nobody really approached me about it. So I was like, okay, maybe I'm fine. It's okay. Nobody's really paying attention. But this guy came out blunt and just said it. And I was like, wow. I'd never felt really self-conscious about it to that extreme. And I was like, look, I got some skin stuff going on. I'm taking medication. But yeah, so that one was really weird. So that one kind of hit me.
I get a
Skin has
red
obviously gotten
nose.
better since that, but
Yeah, I
yeah.
think this one it's definitely people with like severe acne.
Oh yeah, bro.
I can see that.
Man, like middle school, high school, even through like your adult years, severe acne.
Oh yeah,
People have
especially
started
adult
talking about
acne.
that.
Bro, I
Yeah,
had
adult
some
acne. Yep.
fucking terrible acne in high school. I have scars from it, and I
Man,
do
I
I do
would get
recall giving.
pimples every once in a while, but people would still talk about them. It doesn't
Yeah,
matter how
no.
much or how little
Stevie
there
used to make
is.
fun of my pimples all the time, especially if I got them on my nose.
Wow.
He's a bully.
I think that's why I ended up like I have like a red nose because I would say stuff
Karma.
like this. Sean would get like a big like
Oh,
red around the end of
honkers,
his
bro,
nose,
like
bro, like
big ones, like
massive, and I
robbing pain.
call him Rudolph, and now karma has come back, and I just naturally like my nose is like redder than the rest of like you know. I don't know. Even somebody when I was in the broadcast, somebody's in there like, does he have something on his nose or is it just red? Like it's just red, dude. Like, it's just
Ah,
red. It's got a
Put
red
some
nose.
sunscreen on that thing, bro. I don't know what to tell you.
It's not. It's just red. I don't know.
Yeah.
It'd be like that. It's just so much blood in my nostrils.
there you go. Peak male fitness of the nose.
Yeah, just great blood flow. That's what that is.
That's it, man. Vascular nose.
Very
Yeah.
efficient nose.
Yeah.
So the last one on this list here, we have gynecomastia, or commonly known as man boobs. Very easily to see how that would be affecting a lot of people, and
The name
especially
alone.
internal.
Yeah, for real.
Yeah, man.
And
Boobs. Moobs.
yeah.
Hmm.
So yeah, there's all kinds of names, all kinds of jokes about them, and especially if you're, like I said, if you're going to a point where you're going to go to a pool, you're going to the gym to try to work on your man boobs, and you got people making comments or eyeballs, and the body shaming can come from a non-vocalized way, and staring is definitely one of those.
Hmm.
Make you feel
I
less of a person or
I
out
have
of place.
been concerned about that because at a point I was heavier, so I do have some extra, I think, around here, just like around like the waistline. And it's like if I guess the simplest way to put this is if like the nipples are kind of like colder, they're like harder, they're like more bing, like my chest looks great. But when they get more like when they're not in that state, they look a little more like meh. And it's something that I am also like, I'm self-conscious about that sometimes, where I'm just like, man, my chest doesn't look as good because my nipples aren't erect. Y'all know what
Yeah,
I'm
so
talking about, right?
Uh-huh.
I know you're saying like it makes your
What?
chest look firmer, or
Yeah, it does. That like tightens
like
up
your
the
pecs.
skin,
Oh,
and
I
so
get it,
like
I
they
get
just looks
it.
better. Like tiny nipples versus the larger when they're like soft.
yeah.
Yeah,
I don't
so
know
this
the-
one, I remember there was a fight in the UFC. It's been a couple years back. It was Israel Adesanya.
Mm-hmm.
He during his fight he had one pec that was significantly like larger than the other, and it was nonstop from just everyone sitting at their computers talking about his titties. And he's
Yeah.
just like, I really don't give a shit. I won, and
come
I'm
fight me.
rich.
Yeah,
Yeah.
come fight me. Let's talk about it in the octagon. Yeah,
It's one of the
but
big
like I said,
drawbacks of steroid stuff too, is that
Yeah.
it causes stuff because it messes with like your estrogen and testosterone and all that stuff, and it ends up causing that sort of thing.
yeah. So all these topics we talked about, and we were kind of talking about this internalization, but we all got there from someplace. And we talked about the media. So how big of a role do you think the media plays in body shaming?
Where we get most of our ideas of self-worth and what we're supposed to look like from.
Yeah.
It plays the largest role in body shaming.
Yeah. As far as our internal stuff, that's where I would say like 90% of it, that's where it's coming from. I mean, we didn't just make stuff up in our heads, and there's not a lot of people following us around shaming us. Like, all of us were trying to recall, and there's very few instances, if any, where we had some actual like severe body shaming going on. So it's just our own ideals based on the media.
I mean, some of that is also lucky. There are people out there who have people who have, who are
Oh yeah,
more
for
heavily
sure. No,
bullied than us and stuff like that. Yeah.
I'm not saying
I
anything
I
like
know.
that. I'm
I just
just
know people will point that out when they listen because people will always find something to point out and say it's not applicable to them. So there are people out there who were bullied and did have people who followed them around and did shame them for things like that. We have been lucky enough that it hasn't happened to us a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely think the media, and it's funny because we are the media as well, especially with social media.
Hmm.
So we do control a lot of that as individuals, but I definitely think so, it plays a large part in that. And I guess like movies, TV shows, things like that that we watch, kind of because those are supposed to be the peak examples of humans, and we all try to measure ourselves up to them in whatever standard. So
I think a lot of it
And I
is.
and I feel like, having that great body can really you can really get away with a lot more in like Hollywood and shit. Because I know, all right, so this is gonna be completely my opinion. But Scarlett Johansson and Ryan Gosling, I don't think either one of them are very good at. But Ryan Gosling's body looks like it was photoshopped, and Scarlett Johansson has like the ideal, quote unquote, ideal female form. People for
So
years have looked at both of them and said that's the perfect person.
hmm.
yeah, I mean, I guess that would. I mean, I guess there's perceived perks to having that ideal physique, and
Yeah.
maybe that's a motivating factor for us wanting it and trying to measure ourselves up to it. We want the success that may come with it, or having people idolize us.
I think part of it is not only that we see it and we go, "Oh, we'd like that," but we also put that on other people. So we see somebody in a a movie or whatever, they get tons of attention from girls. We know it's popular, then we assume that all women want that, and that if you're not that, then you're not good enough, sort of thing, right? Like
yeah.
when like people are capable of realizing, like, okay, that's Ryan Reynolds, right? Like I'm not gonna go get Ryan Reynolds. Or I'm not gonna, gonna find somebody who looks like that, blah blah blah. It's just a movie. Yes, he's hot, whatever. But then you find and you go, oh, if I don't have that, then I'm not good enough. And women will do the same thing. They'll see an actress who's very thin, athletic, big boobs, whatever it might be, and they'll go, oh, every guy only wants that. I don't have that. And so then they're ashamed and yada yada yada. And it goes same thing with like everything, right? Just what we talked about with porn, right? We see that and then we go, oh, if we don't have that, then we can't ever satisfy a woman. And
Yeah,
that's not the same. And oh, that guy's super tall. I'm not super tall, so I can't ever do that. And you can apply it to anything.
yeah. So while we're on this like
That's-
subject, oh, go ahead, Chris.
No, go ahead, go ahead.
I was gonna say that. So there's a little article we found, and it was talking about how body shaming is different for guys. And we kind of put this stuff on ourselves. So the assumption of guys are the protectors. So therefore, our reaction is we need big muscles, muscular bodies will make you a better protector. When in reality, this article is saying that this is rooted in a toxic masculinity, and it's no longer necessary in a modern society.
Yeah.
Um, I, People will have their own opinions based on that. I'll
Yeah,
let
I
you go.
mean, I I think that yeah, like it is a kind of silly way to think through things, especially with the fact that most people who are trying to cause someone harm or going to do anything to you are not coming to fist fight you. They're
Yeah,
going to come with some sort of weapon. So it's just kind of
They better.
outdated, like functionally.
yeah,
It's not like they're like, "Hey, bro, give me your wallet, but first stack up, let's go." Like
yeah,
stick them up. Like no, but like we talked about earlier, like biologically, maybe it makes sense.
yeah,
I'd love to know the science on that. I should have looked it up before this to see if there's anything that actually shows that is a reason that women, are or claim to be whatever it is attracted to tall men. Like, is there something that triggers in a brain when they see a tall person? Like, have they done a scan and then like walked a short person in front of a woman and then walked a tall person in front and seen what like triggers in the brain? I would be very curious on that because that's what I'm guessing is clearly it's outdated, right? You don't need that anymore. You don't need the tallest, biggest guy to go out and hunt
yeah.
something, but it's still this desire. And I wonder if it's an innate biological thing or if it's just been passed down through like generations. That would
Or
be an
societal
interesting.
or something.
Yeah, somebody do the
Well,
research and let us know.
well, I wonder if like, but again, like we're applying it to our own culture. like there are cultures in the world where like there's just not a lot of tall people at all.
True.
You know what I mean? Like, so is there that same kind of viewpoint there?
Or is
You
it
know,
just like the
versus
Western
in like a
society?
Western, you know, thing, or American thing, or whatever you
That's
want to
it.
call it.
I'm going east.
So the next one here says,
I'm going with you then. I'll
He's
still
like,
be the
he's
tallest.
like, I'm gonna skew this, baby.
let's go. All right. So the next one says, another assumption here: people are attracted to guys with big muscles. So the reaction is big muscles, especially massive arms, will help guys attract a partner. When in reality, at least one study suggests that a large portion of women are turned off by big muscles, although other guys may find more muscles more attractive.
Hey, like I said, we lifting for the boys.
I would be curious how big they're talking about with muscles. Like, if
And
we're
that's
talking
the
about
thing
like
too.
bodybuilders, then yes, I agree. Most women are probably
yeah.
like,
Like
no.
the Olympia. Okay,
Yeah.
we're too much. You
Yeah.
know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like,
Yeah, there's a point where, like I said, being bigger and toned is one thing, but I think, like I said, being the, again, goes back to that thing of wanting somebody to snuggle at night. When you've got a literal washboard laying next to you in the bed, and you're trying
Yeah.
to find a place to rest your head and snuggle up, and you're like, none of you is comfortable.
Yeah.
Like, none of you.
Yeah.
So,
So I think that when they're referring to the big muscles, they're probably talking it like being turned off by. They're probably talking about like massive buff,
Super
like
extreme.
bodybuilders.
like big
yeah.
shredded dudes.
I
Not
don't think
even
they're
have to be
talking about
massive,
just somebody in good
just
shape.
big body, just
Yeah.
big dudes. Doesn't have to
Yeah.
be like, you know, the extreme, like, you know, the top, you know, half a percentile guys, but like just big dudes who are
Yeah.
shredded.
Yeah. So that's where I think they're coming out with that. I don't know that. I think one of the reasons that people find muscles attractive, one, I think it's their arms and abs to a certain extent, maybe some chest to a certain extent, not insanely extreme, not, but like I think that's there. But I think a lot of it is actually they're attracted to the ambition of it.
Yeah.
Like I think it is this person puts forth effort, they work on themselves, and
Yeah,
I
they
think
care about
that's
themselves.
attractive. I think
Yeah,
that's what people
And,
find
you know,
attractive.
you look at someone that has big arms, a nice chest, or abs, someone that's healthy.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
For
Yeah,
spawning,
definitely.
Yeah. They look like they could mate well.
exactly.
We can make strong children.
And so, yeah, maybe that a lot of this is like a inner biological subconscious thing. So the next one for the assumption is feeling ashamed about one's body is a sign of weakness. And so the reaction to that is compulsive fitness behavior and not talking about what you're going through. So the reality is that there is no perfect body, so there's nothing to be ashamed of.
Yeah, we do. I think all strive for perfect body when it's just like what is perfect, right?
Yeah.
Like what is, there are things that maybe are more well liked by the masses, but it's not perfect for everyone.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, and we're never like most people at least don't hold themselves to like what is good or healthy. It's what is the best.
Yeah.
Like they don't want to just be good enough. They want to be the best. And
Yeah.
so that's where there's that line of people who get in their own heads because you can't be the best, right? Like there's always somebody better. So
Right.
I think you read enough studies, everything ends up being a sign of weakness.
Yeah, for sure. All right. So the last assumption here is talking about your body or feelings is not tough. So the reaction is keeping your feelings inside for fear of being seen as too feminine. When in reality, talking about your body and feelings with others is healthy. After all, everyone has them.
I think it goes into one of the reasons we did this podcast, be honest, man,
Yes.
is because dudes don't talk about, maybe you have like the height thing some people bring up. They're more open, but how often do you actually hear dudes publicly talking about if they're worried about their penis? You don't, because then people would literally be like, "Oh, you have a small penis." Like that's it. Like no matter how big or small that person is, like the idea of even talking about it categorizes you in a way that dudes don't talk about things, and that's just
Yeah.
one of them. But it's the same thing. Like height, then people will just be like, "Oh, you're insecure. You're insecure." Like nobody likes when somebody's insecure, so you can't bring up your concerns, and that kind of locks
Yeah.
you into that. Which we also again talked about mental health is that like we can't talk about that. As a woman brings up like I feel like I'm overweight or whatever, we're supportive. If a guy brings up something like that, it doesn't tend to go quite as well.
Yeah.
So now I wonder, with you having said that, is someone going to comment and be like, "You guys didn't bring up your penis size, so I can't know if you relate to me or not, so I don't feel like I'm able to take part in this conversation."
somebody might. Somebody might, yeah.
That's but that comes with the territory. There's always something that you can't relate to because not everyone is the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there are studies out there. There are averages out there.
Yeah, you can
Um,
go look them up.
Look them
so
up.
that data is there.
There's like a bunch of separate studies, and there's one, what do they call them, metadata reviews or something, that
Yeah.
pulled all of it together and pulled the average. And I think that's where the like 5.1 or 5.2, whatever it was, came together. Again, that's global. And I think depending on where you're at, so like I think Eastern Asia, or like, maybe it's a 4.7, and then like the Congo is like a 6.2 or something like that. And like there's a bunch of different numbers, but like globally it's that. And I don't remember what the stats are, but it's something where like an average is just like the average. It doesn't mean that there aren't bigger. It doesn't mean they're not smaller, right? It doesn't mean, whatever. It's just that's where the average falls. So
Yeah.
you can be a little bit under and still be okay because there's still plenty around you. It's not like there's a cutoff where it's like, here's the average. Oh, you're below it. You're one of five.
Yeah.
No, there's
Yeah.
millions of people probably.
Yeah.
Same
It's a
thing.
big median curve.
Yeah, same thing with
so
above it. Like there's still like in the, if it's a 5 point whatever, the six, there's still lots of people with sixes. It's just going to get smaller percentage as you get bigger and bigger and bigger, right? So,
yeah.
and they're
So
all
do you
normal.
guys exactly? So do you guys think adolescent boys are more affected by or are as affected by media's ideals as much as girls?
I don't.
I
No,
don't think so.
no. I think
No,
as you
it's
get
terrible
older,
for
it
them, bro.
shifts. I think as you get older, it shifts. But as like kids and stuff, no, it's pretty bad. Yeah,
I don't
for
even know if
girls.
it gets as you get older it shifts.
I think in the current
I-
movement of like accept everybody for
Oh
what
yeah,
they
no,
look like
there's
as
definitely
women, yes,
some
but
positive things, and as you mature, you make more sense of the world. But I know that like, it's still very much a thing. But I think it's an absolute fucking war zone for young women.
I agree.
Yeah.
Absolute war zone. It's bad, man.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't think any of us would argue with that. I mean, we've all
Yeah.
seen it or heard our, someone we know talk about it. It's definitely rough.
Yeah. Yeah. So when I was doing research for this episode, I did notice that there was not a lot of research done on this subject in the past. This was a recent development, and by recent I mean in the last 20 to 30 years. But this kind of studies have been going back for a lot further for women because it was a much more known thing. But men are also experiencing a lot of issues, as we went through that list before. That once again just not doesn't get talked about, and because men would clam up and not speak, therefore those issues don't get brought forward. So therefore, hey, they're taking it as silence is golden. Men are good. Nothing wrong with those guys. Women are more communicative and they're speaking out their concerns or their issues, or we see them going through these things because they're openly sharing their feelings or their emotions. So therefore, we know what they're going through. So the studies aren't there for a lot of the men when I was researching this, which I found very interesting. It's a recent
Yeah.
development for body shaming and men and their feelings about body shaming.
Now
Yeah.
I do think it's worse now for boys than it was when I was growing up, purely because social media.
Yeah.
Like when we were coming into high school, there was social media. There was like MySpace, Facebook was just getting off the ground, like towards
was
the end there. Like,
fresh.
but like it was nothing. Like I mean, most people weren't even on it yet.
Mhm.
You had to be like a computer oriented person to even be on social media at that time.
Yeah.
And so like, but now it's like you like don't exist if you're not on social media, and like
Yeah,
it is
your account's
constantly
made before you're even born. You're like,
Yeah,
oh,
so like
this is
you're
my kid's Facebook page.
yeah, so like there is definitely it is so much worse, but it is accelerated at that same rate, if not worse, for young women.
Oh,
So
of course.
do I think it's more difficult than when we grow up? Absolutely, but
Yeah.
no, I mean there's no arguing that point.
I mean, I
Yeah.
look at it like young girls getting into like God, what is it? Like the little beauty pageant,
Oh,
Oh yeah,
gosh.
right?
Yeah,
It
that's
starts you off on that shit path, and then you
Yeah.
wanna end up being a model, and to be a model, you have to be X inches tall. You have to weigh below X pounds.
yeah.
It just gets worse and worse as you get older and older, and it starts when you're in your single digits of age going to beauty pageants because your mom wants you to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
that and there's a couple things we talked about. There's a lack of literacy. And so when you have these young girls who have never been, or young men who have never been told that, like, hey, the internet's not real. most of that is just made up on the spot. Like those pictures, that environment doesn't look like that. Those people don't look like that.
For good or
They have
worse.
they have the perfect lighting. They have the perfect setup. They have a team of people making them look good. Oh, and then they photoshopped it afterwards. But they're
Yeah.
presenting to you as if it's real. And if they just walk around day to day like that, there's a Greek freaking god all the time. 100%. They could eat a whole pizza. Them abs are shining, baby. So like, but people don't know that. Maybe
Yeah.
some do, but I'm saying, but in general, like we just don't. There's the literacy of social media, and we already talked about porn, and even just media in general is just not there. Like that should be mandatory. Now, if you got good parents and you're telling your kids that, hopefully you found some way that's not super shitty to keep them off of it. But obviously, in modern times, it's going to be really hard to do. But if you could give them that literacy and let them know, like, hey, here's how to look at this. Like, you can enjoy it, you do other things, but like realize this. Then you're a step ahead of the game. But I think most kids don't have that, and that's bad.
Yeah, it's definitely something you grow into. One thing I was very glad to see was photoshopping become a verb. They're like, "Oh, that's photoshopped. That's
Yeah.
photoshopped,"
Mhm.
Yeah.
and so people were starting to call out and recognize that, hey, that's not how things look. People are looking at magazine covers and be like, "Oh, you can see where the background is pinched in here. They didn't do this right." So awareness is starting to get there. The tricks that were there from before social media aren't really there as much anymore as we're starting to gain access to the same tools these guys had before us with airbrushing and things like that to make photos look, the way they want to be.
I think
Airbrushing
it
on
does help
ads.
that we kind of grew up while all of this was changing.
True.
Like we got to see when people were posting pictures of themselves, where it was just them because filters didn't exist, and then filters started coming out, and people learned how to edit their photos, and we got to see how everything changed.
Yeah.
Yeah. But just imagine being a young person getting on the internet with no idea
Yeah,
of anything and just
Yeah.
seeing this and constantly measuring yourself against that. I mean, it's
Yeah.
terrible for the brain. Terrible.
So I think we've already spoke about this, and I definitely know everybody's opinion on this. But do you think men experience body shaming as much as women?
Nah.
not as much. I just think it's more now than it was before, or at least more recognized now than it was
It's
before.
definitely more what's the word I'm looking for? Lackadaisical, I guess you could say. Like it's more like it could be off the cuff and it's not serious. It's not real body shaming.
I can see that.
I don't know. I want to say no, not as much. I think that, like Sean said, it's definitely way more now. I think the big problem is that most of women, like any body shaming against women, is shamed itself. Body shaming against men is not. I think
Yeah.
that's the big distinction. Is like when you body shame a woman, people are like, it's known. Like people will tell you, you can't do this, is wrong.
Yeah.
Like
Stop
blah blah
that.
blah.
How dare you?
Yeah, exactly. Like women can do whatever they want. They could be however they want. They can be any size. They can be any, whatever. It doesn't matter. Big
Yeah.
boobs, small boobs, big butt, little butt, doesn't matter. Like love women, love their bodies. Men don't get that same treatment. It feels like
Yeah.
you have the occasional person who's out there like, yeah, we love short kings, but like other than that, like there's not a lot of like you get shamed, you just get shamed, and it's just like, oh well, like tough up, like
Yeah.
so. But I don't think
Yeah.
it's reached the point where like men are shamed more. No.
No.
Plus, most of the shame that happens to men is just, it might be, it's just that it's always considered jokes, right? It's just jokes. That's all it is. It's just jokes.
Yeah.
Dudes just joke on each other, girls joke on dudes, and it always just has to be like, hey, just laugh it off.
Yeah. And I think that's what Sean was kind of speaking to there. It's very nonchalant when speaking about it, and like you said, it's not really pointed out as, "Hey, bro, don't say that. That's not
Yeah.
kind,
Yeah, I
and you
mean,
don't know that person's feelings."
I'm sure you guys have seen it, the picture of Elon Musk
Yeah.
that went viral of him on his yacht,
Yeah.
and people are
Yeah.
making fun of him like he's gonna care.
Yeah.
I mean, he still
But
might.
he's a
I was just saying he
guy.
probably does.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but he's a guy, and people make fun of him for it, and it's okay
Same thing
because
with
he looks funny, right?
yeah, Vin Diesel when he was on a
Oh
yacht,
yeah, Vin Diesel.
shirtless, he had the belly hanging out there, and
Yeah, because he's expected to be
yeah,
absolutely jacked
yeah, you're not the
All the
same
24/7,
guy.
time.
365 days a year.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think they I like the counteracted to that or the counter joke to that when they were like, "Oh, look at him, he's shirtless on a yacht and he's fat," and they're like, here you are with the shirt and yachtless, and you're still fat. So,
Dang.
yeah.
Yeah.
Dang.
Wow. So is it? And we kind of spoke a little bit about this as well. So is it more
Mhm.
commonly accepted to openly body shame men over women?
I'd say so.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
think it's for the reason Steven brought up. It comes off as more of a joke, like it's not serious.
Yeah.
Some of it. I do also think that it's just like that's one reason why I think a lot of it doesn't count, if you will, like, quotation marks count. But I also think it has just become more prevalent and more accepted now to just like dog men in ways that you couldn't, I mean, yeah, that you couldn't do women. Like people would get on you about it. And now it's just like, yeah, dude, like, and the standards have shifted, I think. I think they're just the standards that men are held to are getting higher and higher while women are basically telling everybody else, like, lower yours, you
Yeah.
know? Well, we talked about this in a previous episode where for all these people out there now who only want the top 1% of men, like 10% or 90% of women swipe on 10% of men or something on dating apps is like the stats that have been going around. And it's just because they're all like, these are my standards. This is what I'm holding myself to as we go through a population crisis because nobody's getting together and nobody's doing anything because we're all holding each other to standards that we can't actually meet. And whether or not that's
To
tied
an
into
extent, it's
this.
probably all right. Some of those people probably don't need to reproduce anyway.
Yeah, I mean, fair, but yeah.
For sure. So, we've spoken a lot about a lot of these topics today. So one thing we can kind of sum up is that men are normally, the perceived notion is that men are concerned with a lack of muscle, and that's about it, or penis size, and that's about it. But it's a much more complex issue for men and the issues that they face. And we've said it before in a lot of our podcast episodes: seek treatment, seek counseling, look for positive solutions, find ways to better yourself where you can, and don't let these things tear you down. You're still a man, you're still whoever you want to be. Don't let these things tear you down. I want to congratulate Chris for finding some help. That's the
Yes,
way to do it, man.
sir.
So
Heck
we
yeah.
appreciate we appreciate and applaud you for taking care of yourself, man. And we
Yeah.
want all the rest of you listeners to do the same. Take care of yourselves, look after yourself, and remember, be honest, man.